The Lord is talking to his people through Prophet Isaiah. Tell them, I'm now going to renew my people. I will take them out from Babylon and restore them once again as a nation. But why is he appealing to those words? Let us remember that we are in the second part of the book of Isaiah. In the first part of this book, the Lord himself addressed his people through Prophet Isaiah and asked them to obey his law, to obey his commandments, so that he might not punish them. They did not obey, and as a consequence, they were sent to the exile as consequence of their sin. And now they are suffering. They are even regretting, what did we do? But how am I going to save them? He promises, I'm going to save you. I'll forget all that you did in the past. And more than what I did in the past when I took you from Egypt, I'm going to make things new in such a way that you are going to enjoy life more than when I took you from Egypt. And this is a God who reveals himself to us as the one who is careful, the one who is not pleased in our sufferings, but he wants us to come back to him so that after we have been forgiven, we might continue to live a new life in him. It is this same God who comes now to us in the gospel with that image of forgetting our sinful past and restoring us to a new life. We are given a story that is well known. In fact, when I was reading this part of the gospel, I just wanted to stop and say, each one of us knows this story. We don't need to read it. Each one of us can tell it by memory, isn't it? We all know it. And maybe the question that we can ask ourselves is this one. Why give us this reading at the end of Lent when we are almost approaching the Easter? But let us also ask another question. Why are these people quoting Moses, the law of Moses, in condemning the woman? But another question, why is Jesus not obeying the law? Because they said it is the law says this. But why is Jesus not giving them a go away, condemn this woman? Because it is according to the law. But I want us also to look at our own customs, our own traditions. How do we treat women in our own traditions? And I think these few questions will help us to get the message that this gospel is bringing to us today. At the beginning, they come to him with a woman caught in adultery. And I think we all know that if there is adultery, there needs to be how many people? How many? 2. So she did not sin alone. But where is the man? In fact, in Africa, there is a proverb that says that the one who is caught, that is the thief. So you can continue to cheat and rob from people until you are caught, then you can be declared a thief. But here, things are going to turn, and Jesus will give us the truth that we need to tell each other. They have come to him with a woman. Let us understand their reaction from their own tradition. And this particular tradition, the woman was seen as a property of the man. The woman was seen as somebody who is not able to master her passions. And so it was up to the man to make sure that he helps this woman to master her passions and live accordingly. And so the law that was there favored more men more than women. And that's also what happens in our own traditions. I am trying to look at this woman and put her in our situation today and ask myself, even after forgiveness, could this woman go back to the house of her husband? What happens in our traditions is that once a woman is caught up in adultery, that's the end of the marriage. And that is African tradition. But we need to do something more. If a woman can do so and go away, what of a man? If a man also has done so, will he not also move out of the house and go somewhere else? But Jesus is going to change things here. They come to him with the woman, accuse her, but they expected him to give an answer. And as we heard in the gospel, their focus is not much on the woman, but their focus is on Jesus. They want to get from him something that will give them a reason to condemn him. Let us remember that the law had said this, that a woman caught up in adultery should be stoned to death. But at this particular time, the Romans were ruling over the Jews, and they had abolished the capital punishment from their law. And so, by coming to Jesus with this woman, they are putting him in a situation that I call a dilemma. If Jesus wants to save the life of the woman and say that you can forgive her and go, they will not believe in him as the Messiah, because the Messiah who was supposed to come was said that he will follow the law that was there. And so he could not say, no, please forgive this woman and forget what she did. But he does not do so. If he was to say, now stone her to death, he could be also caught in a situation whereby he is disgracing the law that was given by the Romans, because they had said no capital punishment again. And so Jesus responds without responding. That's the first reaction of Jesus. He bends down and starts to write down. And please don't ask me what he was writing down, because I don't know. He is writing down, but as they continue to insist, he raises now his voice and says, let him who has no sin be the first to throw a stone on her. And we all heard that they started to go one by one, starting from whom? The elders, isn't it? But why? Which connection is there between sin and the elders? There's somebody who said that all these people who are there, first of all, recognize themselves as sinners. And maybe when Jesus was writing down, he was now writing down the sins of the Pharisees and scribes that were there. But now, those who had lived for a long time are supposed to be more sinful than those who are younger. And so they have to start from those who are old than any another person, so that the one who has less sin might live at the last time. Shalom. That is the situation, the way it is presented. But I want us to look at it in another position, because whatever this person said is not there in the gospel. But we can study the whole scenario and draw a lesson from it. By saying, no one condemned you, and the response of the woman, no one. First of all, Jesus is presenting himself as one who is not a judge. That is the first thing. But we also know that for somebody to be stoned to death, there were needed at least 2 witnesses. But no witness is there. So Jesus is no longer in the position to condemn the woman. But when he tells her now, please go and sin no more, that's where we find now the core of this story that is given to us for our meditation today. And what is that? Let us agree that by telling her, go and sin no more, and by forgiving her, Jesus is not saying that he is pleased in the sin of the woman. Shalom. He is not pleased in the sin of the woman. And he is not encouraging her and saying, now my daughter, you see, everybody has left you here, which means that you did something good, so please keep it up. But what he's saying is, I have forgiven you, but this is not enough. Please, when you go back to your normal life, now start something new. Don't sin again. And if he tells her to not sin again, then the question comes to us. And we might ask ourselves, how many have we gone to Jesus asking for pardon? How many times have we gone to Jesus accusing ourselves of something, and he has pardoned us and given us also the same instruction and say, go and sin no more? And how much have we been obedient to that same law? Let us say that in forgiving this woman, Jesus did not immunize her from sin. So as to say that you have been forgiven now, so we'll never be able to sin again. But what he means is that you have been here. You have been caught up in this adultery. I've seen how much you are concerned with your sin. But now, please, if you are very much concerned with your sin, go and try to make an effort. Try your best to avoid these sinful acts. And that is what he's telling us. It does not matter for me and for you to approach the sacrament of reconciliation with the aim of committing the same sin. You know, there's this person who used to say, now my sins are many, and I think I'm not yet able to avoid them. But for the time being, let me go for confession and try to do away with these ones. Then I start tomorrow, because that's my nature. What he wants from us, it is that true contrition inside ourselves. I recognize myself a sinner, but I'm not able to overcome. But the only thing that I can do, it is to try to overcome my passion